about how trend forward, sensory driven merchandise build brands people actually remember. From fashion to branded merch, how trend forward, sensory driven merch build brand people actually remember.
Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Vector Art Podcast. Today we are joined Lee and Mazzarisi to talk about how trend forward, sensory driven merchandise build brands people actually remember. Lee, and excited to have you here. Let's dive in.
Great.
So, the topic from fashion to branded merch, how trend forward, sensory driven merch build brand people actually remember. The first question, have you made a big shift from fashion world to the brand merchandise and now led brand operation at Whitestone? How was your fashion background shaped the way you approach merch and brand experience today?
That's a great question. I spent almost a decade in the fashion industry. Yeah, across merchandising, production, design services.
Right.
And I feel like that foundation it completely shaped how I approach branded merchandise today. I think fashion trains you to watch behavior, right? Not just what people are wearing, but the why.
Fine. Yeah.
What are they craving? Do they want comfort? Do they want ease? Do they want versatility? And in fashion, I don't think product is
Yeah.
random.
Yeah. Of course.
It's built around silhouettes and fabrication and timing and cultural relevance. So
Right.
when I moved to branded merchandise, this is the first time I was ever in this space at Whitestone. I don't see it as swag.
Okay.
I see it as product strategy.
Okay.
So at Whitestone, we approach merch like a collection, right?
Okay.
And not an
Okay.
order. So we'll talk to clients and say, what's the story? What's the mood? What
Yeah.
role is
Yeah.
this product going to play in somebody's life?
Wow.
To us, it's not a giveaway. It's a
Right.
touch point. And I think
That's
if it's
what.
done right, it feels intentional,
True.
and like something you chose, not just something you were handed. So to me, that's kind of how I feel like, the worlds intersect in a way, and how that
Uh-huh.
experience I had in the fashion industry for quite some time kind of helped me guide me in this industry.
Super, very rightly you spoke about the fashion, how you've taken over the word fashion in real world. The second question, you talk about trends as slow culture shift, now quick fads. What does your trend forecast process looks like, and how do you translate those signal into actual product for clients?
It's another great question. So I always tell everybody that I always say trend isn't about what's new, right? It's
Okay,
about a cultural shift.
okay,
So at Whitestone, our process starts with watching culture at a macro level.
right,
So our team is looking at consumer behavior data, retail shifts, color and material, social
right,
conversations.
right.
What's trending on TikTok? What's the economic and emotional climate out in the world, right? So we're looking
Wow.
at patterns that show up in multiple industries. So we're not just looking at giveaways. We're looking at fashion, interior, tech, wellness, hospitality. I mean, our client
Wow.
base is wide and vast, and we need to be really educated on those shifts across those industries, right? So
Super.
when a signal repeats along all of those industries, that's where we lean in. That's kind of the
So
sweet
many,
spot.
so many department you covered, so many different segment that you covered while
Yes,
just
for
saying out this.
sure. And we kind of take all of that and translate it into a framework that clients can use, because you asked a bit about our process, right? So
Right,
we see a cultural pull. So if we see a cultural pull grounding towards calm, right? We're seeing a
right.
lot of right now like reset. We're all exhausted. We're on our computers all day, and we just want product that calms us or grounds us, right? So
Yes, yes.
what that would mean for us in the design process is we would help to design items that have, restorative color palettes or matte finishes, or, branding that's subdued and not loud, right? So we kind of
Niche. Yeah.
identify that, right? We identify that cultural shift, and then that kind of looks through the tote jacket product lens in that sort of thing.
Wow.
And for us, we kind of follow the process of that cultural insight, then it's product direction, decoration, production, delivery, right? That's kind of like
Right.
the longevity of the process.
This is not selling promotional product. It's selling a story altogether.
Totally. You're 100% right.
Rightly mentioned in the first question, touch points. You need to have those touch points, then you sell a product. Just don't give the products. How in the PPI exhibition, we saw people just giving away things.
Just
People
handing
carrying
things away
bags.
blindly. Yeah.
People are carrying bags.
Um,
People are, I
yeah, and they're
swear,
running around. It's
it's
crazy. I'll
crazy.
tell you, our CEO has said to me before, and I love when he says this. He says, you need to make a product that somebody is going to keep, or they love it so much they're willing
No.
to give it away. They're willing to gift
Yeah.
it to somebody. And that really stuck with me years ago because I was like, okay, that makes sense. I'm not going to give my friend something I got or my family member something I got at an event if I don't love it myself,
I
right?
love
I'm
it.
not going to, right? It's just going
Of
to turn
course.
into something like that. Yeah. So,
Of course. And I
yeah.
do respect, I mean, I also agree with you that if people are in this space, if we see that promotion product, the promo family in this space, and people are just not respecting things, big giant like TechWell, PCNA, and XYZ, giving people stuff to take. What the hell?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not serving any purpose. Agreed, you are a big giant. Agreed, you're a top supplier.
Yeah,
Hello.
I think the top supplier, they have the product you're looking for. You just have to figure out how it works for your client, right? Like,
Yeah, of course.
how does something that they have work for them in regards to their ask,
Of
and
course. Of
sharing a
course.
little bit about what's going on culturally so that you're guiding them from a purchasing standpoint. I think the suppliers have everything we want, and we could get
Of
whatever we
course.
want.
Of
We just
course.
have to be able to tell that story to our clients and take the right direction from them for sure.
Of course, and you should solve a purpose. I mean, you should fit in there, like you just said, the very first word, touch points. Should touch here. You
Oh
should be
yeah, for
willing to
sure.
give that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, of course. The third question, recently you highlight things like sensory economy and products as mentioned triggers. Can you share an example of a merch program where sensory or emotional cues, touch, scent, nostalgia, etc., really made it stand out?
Sure. I like to say this still I like to say that we're in a sensory economy. And I think, people are overstimulated. I talked about that a little earlier, that I think people are overstimulated digitally. So
Of
I
course.
think if we're going to have a physical product, it needs to feel something. We need to feel
Of
something
course.
with it. So, texture over noise, or, sense over slogans, just materiality versus messaging. I feel like that's really important, right? So, selfishly, one of my favorite examples is we just did a collection for our offsite. We do an offsite every year. We're a fully remote company, Whitestone. We bring our team once a year together in an offsite, and
Right.
of course, we're making merch for the offsite for ourselves, right? We're making a collection. So this year, or last year rather, in September, we went to New York. We called that collection Whitestone Avenue. You could find that collection on our website. A little
I will.
plug. So Whitestone collection. So we created that for the New York offsite, and instead of that standard swag drop, we curated really, really, curated product that kind of hits the sensory, right? So we did
Wow.
a heavyweight chore jacket with tonal embroidery. We did these really soft, lived in, richer, poorer tees with these hand sketched New York graphics. We did a glass drinkware with the silicone sleeve. We threw in there an analog, sustainable, digital camera,
Wow.
which I thought was really
Wow.
fun to capture moments. And to me, the whole collection wasn't loud. It wasn't very logo heavy, and it was very intentional and tactile. And I felt like, when product hits the multiple senses, I
Right.
feel like it moves away from being transactional, and it moves away to
Right.
being it moves to being memorable.
Memorable. And the way it has been given, with the purpose it is driven, it actually all depends on that.
Yeah. No, I agree with you for sure.
I mean, the fourth question, Whitestone is a big on purposeful, sustainable, and globally scalable merchandise. We all know
Yeah.
about the company. What do brands often get wrong when they brief agencies on merch? How do they can better brief partners like you get evaluated results?
Yeah. I think what brands get wrong is, and one of their biggest mistakes is that they treat merch like an afterthought. So we often receive briefs at Whitestone that are focused only on, budget, quality, and logo, right? Like
Of course, of
sometimes
course.
that'll come in, right? And then that's just not just Whitestone, that's all of us in this space. And I think what elevated merch needs is
Right.
a different direction. I think it needs, who's your audience? Where's your geographic consideration? What's your sustainability requirements? And if you don't have them, you should have them. What is the reality of your timeline? And then
Okay. Oh,
what's
wow.
that? Yeah. And then what's that intended emotional outcome? So for
Right.
me, I think instead of saying, we need 2,000 hoodies, it's like,
Okay.
I'd love brands to say is, we want our top global partners to
Okay.
feel valued. This is the event and this is the timeline, and it's a 200-person event and it's here. I
Right.
feel like that brief helps answer questions more so of,
Clearly,
who's
more
this
clearly.
for?
Yeah.
Yeah, how do they feel? Where do they live? And
Uh,
I think that can help us think beyond the distribution and it can really elevate. So I feel like
yes.
where brands get brief wrongs is they're thinking at an afterthought versus really
Right.
thinking about the entire scope.
Today, who's listening this episode, of course, they will learn how to make things better the way you have helped in the fourth question. Trust me, it's $1 billion answer. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
So exactly what they don't tell you about after, I mean, you sold me 150 hoodies, but you didn't tell me I will get 1 day late, or you didn't tell me, don't tell about what they don't tell you about the game.
Yeah,
So
they
that's
don't,
what, yeah.
what does success look like beyond the distribution?
The fifth question for 2025 and beyond. What emerging trends in culture, design, or consumer behavior do you think most influence the next wave of branded merchandise?
Sure. So we at Whitestone just released our trend forecast, which really is our bread and butter of how we launch the season, or rather
I
the
love the
year.
word bread and butter. Always you've been using this.
Oh, yeah, thanks. I have a young son, so I feel like I'm always saying bread, butter,
Bread and butter.
peanut butter
Fair
and
enough.
jelly. So we released that trend forecast at the beginning of February. And like I said, in all the other questions previously,
Yeah.
we're looking at cultural shifts. We're looking at real things that are going on versus the trend is pink or pattern. We're not looking like that. We're looking
Right.
more around major cultural currents, that are influencing people and
Equally,
what
of
they really
course.
want.
Of course.
So we
Yes.
released 5 trends for 2026. The first one is called Quiet Revival. I
Wow.
touched on that early on. To me, that is all about, grounding yourself, getting away from digital, getting off the screens. There's actually product out there right now that you could scan and your phone gets locked for a certain amount of time.
Yes.
So you're just really engaged where you are. To
Wow.
me, the product in Quiet Revival is tactile, it's puzzles, it's getting back to the nostalgia of, hanging out with your friends and not, not doing this the whole time, actually being engaged in that. Like, hey, you want to do a puzzle? Do you want to do a game? Right. So
Wow.
that's
Wow.
Quiet
Yes.
Revival.
This is missing in today's world, honestly.
Yeah,
Everybody does
yeah.
it.
Yes, totally. The second trend that we released was called New Gen Prep. This one
Uh-huh.
was about the true influences around around sports, and really just everything around how the sports culture has become part of who you are now. That
Of
people
course.
are
Yeah.
wearing their pickleball bag, from the moment they walk out the door till the end of the day, and that bag has to have versatility, not just to hold their pickleball set, but to kind of, be one with them. So yeah, that was another one that we did, another trend story. The third story that we did was actually a story that we already released in 2025.
Okay.
It's called Relife. This one's one of my favorites because it really aligns with who we are as a distributor. And this one was about giving items new life. So we
Okay.
said, okay, instead of you going out and getting rid of your bag, right, that you were going to throw out, why don't you get a charm or a scarf or something and really give that bag new life? Or, why don't you look at products that's made from coffee ground or something that would have normally been discarded that's now been given a new life? Another story we shared was called Rome Ready. This story was about, I think the younger generation, Gen Z and Gen Alpha, they really, really invest in travel. And I think that that's really, really important. And then the last story that we did was activations. I'm sure you saw that at
Wow.
PPAI.
Yes, yes,
Every
yes. There's a
single
larger,
person,
larger view. That's
a
why it
larger
came to my
view.
mind. Whitestone Group, of course.
Yeah,
I have to hear the
everybody
story
is,
personally.
yeah, every single person is kind of showing up and wanting activation. So those are the 5 larger trends. But if you go on our website, we have our trend forecast posted. It's a pop up that comes right away, and you could take a look at the deeper dive of each one of
Awesome.
those.
incredible conversation, so many
Oh,
valuable
great.
insight and culture, trends, and
Thank you.
meaningful brand experience. Thank you so much. Thank
Oh,
you.
you're so welcome. It was so nice to meet you.
Thank you for sharing your experience with us
You're
today.
so
People
welcome.
listening this podcast, they will learn many things about from you. And everyone listening, stay creative, stay strategic, and we'll all see you in the next episode. Thank you so much, Lee.
You're so welcome. Bye.